The Center for Unhindered Living presents Plus Size Polyamory with Judy McMath. Episode 6, The Courage to be Disliked. Good morning. I hope you're all having a great day so far today. Welcome to Episode 6. Today we'll be discussing the concept of having the courage to be disliked, as it pertains to polyamory and being plus size. But first, I'd like to ask you to consider becoming a patron of our show. If you found something of value in our work, you can pledge as little as $1 a month and get access to some neat patron benefits. Just click on the Become a Patron button at the top of the podcast page or go to patron.podbean.com/pspolyamory, and thank you for your support. So today I'd like to discuss a concept that has changed my life, and I hope it will yours too. It's a concept I embraced many years ago, but it's recently become reintroduced in popular form in the book The Courage to be Disliked by authors Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Kuga. My apologies if I didn't pronounce those correctly. We're going to talk about a quick synopsis of this book, but I encourage you to get the book and read it for yourself. And a link to the book will be down in the show notes below. Actually, if possible, I suggest you listen to it as an audio format, because this book is a dialogue. A dialogue between a wise old sage and a troubled young man. The young man comes to the sage looking for advice, and a conversation ensues. So, of course, you can read the dialogue from the book, but I think it works well if you listen to it as a conversation, like as if you were listening to two friends talking. In the study of psychology, one finds three great minds who pondered the human condition from the middle of the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century: Freud, Jung, and Adler. They founded the schools of psychoanalysis, analytical psychology, and individual psychology, respectively. Time doesn't permit us to cover each of these schools of thought in depth. Suffice it to say, Freud believed that basically our past determines our future, that who we are today is determined by trauma we experienced in our past, and that much of that trauma was sexual in nature. Freud saw the younger man, Jung, as someone to groom to take his place after he was gone, but Jung broke with Freud, not agreeing with his ideas about unconscious motivation. Freud had invited Adler to attend discussion meetings at his home as well, but after a while Adler also broke with Freud and stopped attending the meetings. Whereas Freud believed many of our motivations are unconscious and tied to early trauma, Adler proposed that all our behavior is goal-oriented, meaning we choose all our behaviors because they help us reach some goal we've either unconsciously or consciously decided is important to us. In my mind, this sort of encapsulates two main ways that we can look at life and the world, basically. One is the victim mentality. Something was done to me which has caused me to be the way I am. Or, I made the choice to be who I am, and I can change. One of the most important concepts Adler has to teach us is the concept of separation of tasks. The goal of growing up, maturing, and becoming an independent human being is to accomplish the separation of tasks. That means determining which tasks are yours in life and doing them, and which tasks belong to others for them to complete. Don't get involved in other people's tasks. This is where much of our suffering comes from. For instance, suppose you're the parent of a child, and the child won't do his homework. Whose task is it to see that the child gets his homework done? Most people would say it's the parent's responsibility to make sure the child does his homework. That it's a parent's responsibility to make sure a child completes all of his tasks and learns what he's supposed to. But those people would be wrong. It's the child's task, not the parent's. How do you know it's the child's task? It's the child who is directly affected by the decision not to do the homework. Therefore, it's the child's task. It's not the parent's responsibility. It's not their task to see that the child does his homework. At this point, most people would say, well, But if I don't make him do his homework, he'll fail a test or fail a grade or get held back. And to that I would say, yes, that's why it's his task, not yours. But by preventing him from failing, you're preventing him from learning the consequences of his actions. You're taking responsibility for something that is not your responsibility. Let him fail. Oh no, that could ruin his whole future. What if he can't get into college because he didn't have good enough grades? What if this affects his future career choices? To that I would say, better to let him fail now when he's in your home so he can learn about responsibility and consequences while you're there to support him than to wait until he's an adult and he's never had to learn the consequences of his actions because you followed him around, correcting his mistakes before he could experience the unpleasant consequences. But what will people think if I let him fail? His teachers will think I'm a bad parent. My friends will look down on me for having a child that failed. And therein is the crux of the matter. You as a parent don't have the courage to be disliked, and you're teaching your child that he should be more interested in pleasing people than doing what's right for him. Most of the human suffering in this world exists because we take on tasks that are not ours, and we don't have the courage to be disliked. We don't want to be disliked by our child. We don't want to be disliked by our friends and family. We don't want to be disliked by society. We don't want to be disliked by our employer. So we, instead of doing what is right for us, we try to please others. Now, how does all this apply to polyamory or being plus size? We are all way too worried about what other people think of us. We hide who we are, don't tell anybody about our lifestyle, or cover up our bodies. We try to make other people more comfortable rather than living authentically. Here's an important point. Why should other people's comfort be more important than our own? The American poet Emily Dickinson wrote in 1862, "The sailor cannot see the north, but knows the needle can." When she was 18, she stopped going to religious services with her family, which would have been scandalous at the time, because they did not speak to her anymore. Not her family, the religious services. They didn't speak to her inwardly. In her statement, she was suggesting the need for a person to find a compass, and that perhaps you need to have a compass within to help you make decisions that are right for you, and that without it, you would be adrift. Your needle of your inner compass cannot be the comfort of other people. When you worry about whether other people are pleased with you, you're taking on a task that is not yours. You are in someone else's business. It's none of your business what other people think of you, just as it's none of their business how you live your life. Have the courage to be disliked. Have the courage to be yourself. So what if one person doesn't like you? There are millions of others who will. Live authentically in front of all your family and friends. What's the worst that can happen? They won't talk to you for a while? Well, I would venture a guess that if you were hiding your lifestyle from them, you weren't talking to them all that frequently anyway. Are your family's feelings really worth a lifetime of human suffering? Don't try to fix everything for them. Don't try to make everything comfortable for them. Don't try to prevent them from experiencing the consequences of their actions. Don't take on their tasks. Let whatever they choose to do be their own consequences. If they're going to be unhappy because of your lifestyle, and that means that you don't come to see them or talk to them, let them live with that consequence. And you might say, well, I'm the one that's having to live with it as well. Yes, but it will eat you up in the long run. If you don't live authentically, if you're not true to yourself, at the end of your life, you will wish that you had. Visit the Center for Unhindered Living's blog at unhindered-living.com. Join our Facebook page at facebook.com/unhinderedliving. Have something to say about this? Leave a comment Join the discussion. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Currently, episodes of this podcast can be found on Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Amazon Music, as well as on our YouTube channel. I hope you'll tune in tomorrow to be with us for our next episode, and have a great day.